On the broader scale, I really think of this show and this collaboration as a celebration of the use of technology in classical music. You know, I get to program an all-electronic concert at Carnegie Hall. What a cool opportunity. You know, and with a really high-level group of musicians, young, inspired, hardworking. They've been just so into all the phases of the collaboration. I was able to meet with them for 2 to 3 hours once a month for 4 months. I'm super happy, super excited to be asked to be the artistic partner for one of your up-close concerts. And really what we're going to do is we're going to have a very electronics-heavy show. I polled them at the beginning and I asked them, who's worked with electronics before? And not many of them had. But I started with a super simple circuit, which was a pile of wire, 9-volt battery, and a raw speaker. So I showed them how to make the most simple electronic sound. You use the leads and you press it on the speaker, and because the speaker moves when you connect electricity, it disconnects the leads briefly, then the leads fall back because of gravity, so you just create this buzz. Being the musicians they are, now I asked them to play specific rhythms and different articulations and different note durations, and so it immediately became a musical instrument for them. Being able to have that preview show and in-progress showing at Picantico was an incredible opportunity. We had 3 days and just blank slate to just work in this brand new performing arts center. There's a huge difference between rehearsal and performance, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them all bring their A game and see how we can transcend the technology to just new forms of music, you know. And so a lot of the work was done there. A lot of the work's incubated in that space, and it really set us up to kind of take these pieces to the next level at Carnegie Hall. So as part of this collaboration, I was commissioned by Carnegie Hall to write a new piece. And so the piece is called Consolas, for 4 laptops and audience smartphones. The word Consolas, to me, immediately brings to mind the font. You know, when you're choosing a font, when you're writing a paper, you see Futura, Times New Roman, Arial, etc., Wingdings. And I was always fascinated by the Consolas font, and it really is the font from the traditional computer terminal. Often it was sort of this green glow off of the screen. And that's what a human would interface with when you sat and typed code or gave instructions on a computer console. It also directly translates to the Spanish word consolar, so it's you are consoling, consolas, if you conjugate that. So it's this play on the computer being this very utilitarian platform for data entry and data output, but also it's these ones and zeros and this flow of electricity surrounds the way that we communicate and deliver emotion. And how many of us have received the best news of our lives or the worst news of our lives through a computer screen or through a handheld electronic device? So it's really speaking to the emotional content of what these ones and zeros can deliver. You know, as a sound engineer and electronics musician, we really think of musical pitches in terms of hertz. You know, we really think about it, this number. And so the performance tonight of the Terry Riley's traditional in C, I call it in 261.63 hertz, which is actually the frequency of middle C that in C refers to. And so it's this other layer, thinking below just the pitches on a staff. All the music that was coded into these bots used those numbers for the pitches. And so they were all calculated based on that tuning number of in C. So I call these the in C bots. We're using a new electronic circuit that I built that I call the in C bot. that's designed to execute the music. And so I work very closely with the group's percussionist, Oliver, who's actually a very, very high-level software engineer. So he and I collaborated very deeply on the code. But then the musicians are actually putting their fingers on the buttons, playing the switches, interacting with the circuits, following the lights, listening to the synth sounds coming out of these raw speakers. And because they have already played with these components through the workshops, it's already very familiar to them. I think that all modern classical musicians need to have this kind of experience because the use of technology in classical music is not going away, and it's not that new either, but schools aren't really teaching that as the norm. That's where I see my value add to this whole community, like being able to speak the language of a technologist and bridge that gap to be able to speak the language of a chamber musician or a classical performer or a classical music composer, and to really combine classical music performance practice with the engineering practice.